Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching and the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channels. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. We've got close to 1,600 audios available in a variety of topics, trying to set up some interviews for the summer as well into the fall. But this is the July 14th edition of AEW Dynamite, and not a bad show. Better show than they've had in a while in terms of storyline advancement, also in front of live crowds again, which is cool. Crowd go nuts for Jon Moxley, who opens the show alongside friend Eddie Kingston, defeating Carl Anderson with Doc Gallows. Kingston goes at him with a pipe before the match. Moxley takes advantage of the process, and there's a distraction, and Anderson gets striked. Both men go right into strikes before Anderson calls for a fight. They exchange hard shots in the center of the ring. Anderson gets an advantage. Moxley fires up, clotheslines Anderson out of the ring, and then Anderson is sent into the barricade. He blocks a suplex on the ramp and hits one on Moxley. They brawl to ringside before Moxley returns to action in the ring. Anderson hits a gun stun over the top rope upon re-entry and boots Moxley back to the floor, and Anderson hits a spine buster for near fall back in the ring. They fight on the top rope. Moxley hits a superplex and counter exchange. Moxley hits a German suplex. Anderson nails a boot, and Moxley comes back with a clothesline. They hit double clotheslines leading to a double down. They do a counter exchange. Anderson hits an air raid crash for near fall. Anderson then lands a diving neck breaker for another near fall and hits a paradigm shift and shrugs off discus forearms. Hits a gun stun, but doesn't make that work. Moxley fires up and hits some clotheslines. Anderson catches him with a fireman's carry turned into a gun stun for a near fall. Moxley counters a top rope gun stun and a ripcord lariat, and then hits a paradigm shift to win and retain. Lance Archer and Jake Roberts are having an argument backstage. Archer changes his focus to Jon Moxley, who just retained the IWGP Championship, so it's time for a rematch, and challenging Moxley to another Texas Death Match for a near fall in the next week. Anderson and Moxley did have a good match here. Andrade was interviewed by Alex Abrahantes. Andrade has permission to win championships everywhere in the world. Andrade interrupts Abrahantes and asks where Death Triangle was. He wants Abrahantes to tell Death Triangle that he's looking for them, and I don't really think anybody actually cares about Death Triangle at this point, but that's just my gut. Ricky Starks defeats Brian Cage to win the FTW Championship. Ricky chants go throughout, but he lives in the area as well as was a Texas Indie star. Cage hits a press slam early in the waves, and then manhandles Starks from the early stages. He hits a power slam for near fall. Starks avoids corner attack and targets Cage's left arm into a commercial break, and Starks hits a crucifix bomb for a 2 count. Starks then rolls to the floor and grabs the title. Cage nails him and drives Starks' shoulder into the ring apron. Starks uses a bunch of elusive maneuvers, hits a clothesline back in the ring. Cage fights out and goes for a rear naked choke and hits an inside out suplex. Stark gets a foot on the rope before his trouble. Cage counters with a DDT and a thrust kick for near fall. Goes to the outside suplex, but Starks counters and hits a sit-out powerbomb for a near fall of his own. Starks then goes to use the belt, but Powerhouse Hobbs stops him from doing it. Cage then takes advantage of the distraction, hits an F5 for the closest near fall for him in the match. Hook distracts the referee. Hobbs hits Cage with the belt, and Starks hits the spear to win the championship. I think this is a good storyline. Advancement. Taz celebrates with Hobbs, Hook, and Starks. Cody Rhodes and Mikel Black brawl. Cody walks out to the commentary table and recapped Black's debut last week. He said that Black could have just called because he didn't kick a 62-year-old man in the face to get a point across around here. He then grabs a microphone and walks to the ring. He doesn't win every fight, but he has a chance when he knows it's coming. Cody then calls out Black. Black shows up on the big screen, pointing out that the fans cheering loudly when he attacked Cody. And Arn told a story about a man killing a horse because it's crippled. It reminds me of the Terry Funk story. Black said that when he looked at Cody and Arn's eye last week, it just wasn't there. Cody fired up and demanded Black come down and fight. Lights go out. Black shows up and faces off with Cody. They brawl all over. Agents come out as the fans are chanting, "Let them fight." Tully Blanchard is asked about his cheap shot on Conan and runs into Santana and Ortiz, who threatened to attack him with a blackjack but make fun of him instead. Hopefully this leads to the Santana and Ortiz FTR thing that's been held off for too long. Hangman Page is introduced by Tony Schiavone. Schiavone said that Omega versus Paige is what fans want to see. Paige then he says he wants to be champion, and he came close, but he failed. The Dark Order is right. He still needs that championship. He's about to challenge Omega. Don Callis comes out. Callis and the rest of the Elite, minus Omega, walk out. He said Paige is doing a lot of talking. They said Paige isn't the guy. Matt Jackson enters the ring. Asked Paige if he remembered them, his best friends, that he abandoned. Paige said Paige is a sad, lonely drunk and has nobody. And Matt then says that Paige is going to be the next wrestling tragedy. Paige nails Matt, leaving the Elite to attack Omega. Appears and then hits Paige with the championship, but the Dark Order run out and stopped him from doing so. Paige said he's not leaving without a match. Omega agreed, but ups things and calls it a 5-on-5 elimination match, Dark Order and the Elite. Paige and then says that when he wins, he wants a world title shot and he wants the Dark Order to get a tag title shot. Chance for Paige throughout all of this. Omega comes into the ring alone, and he says that if Paige and the Dark Order lose, they can't challenge Omega. Omega asked if Paige is afraid to fail in front of the fans. He says he's going to take an extra measure of pleasure when things turns into a belt collector, and Paige is cool with that. So Paige said the Dark Order doesn't back down from a fight, and that everybody is on. Jericho is next interviewed about MJF's stipulations during another match. Jericho said that if MJF reads all Greek mythology, he knows that Hercules succeeded. He got everything he wanted. Jericho will walk through fire and run around in broken glass to get to MJF. Jericho is the god of thunder and war in AEW. Then we see Shawn Spears attacking Jericho with a chair. MJF said Spears and Jericho Spears is Jericho's first labor. Stipulation is that Spears can use a chair and Jericho can't. Spears hit Jericho with a chair and MJF walks away. Christian Cage defeats Matt Hardy. Basic backstory is that Christian has never beat Hardy one-on-one. No Hardy family office, which I think is good. Finally a match where Matt Hardy doesn't look completely useless, unnecessary. They lock up forever, and then they take that to the floor. Christian attacks and sends Hardy into the barricade after a little while before hitting a dive from the top turnbuckle to the floor, and Christian hits a reverse DDT for a near fall. Christian lands the old 10 punches in the corner spot. Hardy then catches Christian between the ropes, hits a draping DDT onto the steel steps. He captures Christian with the throat in the ropes and diving elbows ahead of the commercial break. Christian avoids a dive and floated over the rope hang. Right hand follows it up with a diving uppercut for near fall. Hardy then goes just to fate, but Christian fights out and hits a spear for a near fall of his own. He then hits a neckbreaker over the ropes, follows by a frog splash for another near fall. Hardy perches Christian on the top rope and nails him with a bunch of shots, followed by a superplex. Hardy then is too slow and covers, only gets a near fall. Christian cradles Hardy for a 2 count, goes for the kill switch, but Hardy grabs the referee and hits a low blow. Hardy follows it up with a twist of fate and a close near fall. Then he rolls to the floor. Hardy locks on the leech and hits a new submission finisher. Hardy rolls back into the ring. Referee counted with Christian making it back in the ring at 9. Christian countered the twist of fate and hit the kill switch for the pin. I don't know that this is necessarily necessary. After the match, Hardy family office, Private Party, and TH2 surround the ring, but Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus run them off. This does make sense. Miro cuts a promo telling a story about himself. After months of insecurity, a voice called out to tell him to return who he was. Miro destroys everyone in his path. He is God's favorite champion. The TNT Championship was his reward. Miro is not willing to defend his championship with his life. He's willing to defend it with yours. He's the Redeemer, and the title has been redesigned with a white strap and some green sideline, basically, stuff there. Britt Baker has a promo next. Britt Baker is brought out by Shivani. She says everyone's concerned about Baker's well-being. Baker says don't worry about it. She's dealt with a lot and come out of the things with an upper hand. She's trying to keep Nyla Rose relevant. Nyla Rose has beaten Baker, but Baker's in a lead of her own. Rose and Vicky Guerrero are shown backstage. Baker says the last time Vicky has the last name, that will keep her relevant in wrestling, but Rose doesn't. The championship is Baker's highest honor, but even without it, she's still DMD. And backstage, Rose says next week she'd hand Baker the tail whipping of her life, and so John Moxley's backstage. One does not beat Lance Archer. One simply survives him. Moxley is haunted, or isn't the hunted. He's the hunter, and I guess that's pretty okay. He wants Archer in a Texas death match next week. Archer won't just be Texas born, Texas bred, he'll be Texas dead. Sammy Guevara defeats Wheeler Yuta. I wish Yuta had come in with a victory on Dynamite here. I think it would have been better for him career-wise. Yuta comes out to the Best Friends music, maybe that he's going to fill in for Trent while Trent is gone. Blade and Bunny are looking on in the audience, and absolutely nobody cared. Guevara uses some flippy-floppy stuff, hits a dropkick early on. He makes like he's going to make a dive, but Yuta rolls to the floor. Chain wrestling sequence. Guevara misses moonsaults before hitting the shooting star press for near fall. Guevara climbs the top rope. Yuta gets his knees up and hits a shooting star press. Yuta fights back and hits a hammer throw, step up drop kick. Guevara hits a forearm smash. Yuta comes back with a German suplex. Yuta follows up with a diving splash, but Guevara kicks out at a 1 count. They exchange strikes until Guevara hits a corner spear, gamagiri, and a double springboard cutter. GTH followed by Guevara, and then wins the match in about 5 minutes or so. QT Marshall and the Factory are interviewed by Tony Schiavone. Marshall is angry about his loss and poured a protein shake on Tony Schiavone's head like he's bullying him. And then we go to Yuka Sukazuki defeating Penelope Ford. Why in the world is Penelope Ford on national television? Yuka chants are in the start of the match. This is her first Dynamite match in well over a year and 4 months to be exact. They performed some chain wrestling sequences. Sukazuki climbs the top rope and cartwheels over, evading an attack. Dropkick follows. Ford goes to the floor. Sukazuki lands a Middle rope cannonball dive, bringing Ford into the ring for the cover. Ford takes out Sukazuki's knee and chokes her out over the ropes ahead of the commercial. They then have a forearm striking exchange upon return from the break. Sukazuki powers Ford up into a nice vertical suplex, hits a rolling kick and a sliding D for the 2 count, and hits a diving back elbow for 2 more. Ford then fights out of the suplex and hits a couple of pump kicks for a near fall. Sukazuki then comes back with a merry-go-round, followed by the magical girl splash, giving Sukazuki the win, which makes sense because, honestly, even though she's relatively unknown to the average American audience, she's still more relevant than Penelope Ford. Next week's Flyer Fest Night 2, Women's Championship, Britt Baker, Nyla Rose. IWGP US Championship, Moxley and Archer. Jericho and Spears. Spears can use a chair, Jericho can't, and Orange Cassidy versus The Blade. Video packaging, advertising, AEW Rampage airs. Then we go to the main event. Coffin match, Darby Allin, Ethan Page. Rules, coffin must close in order for the match to end with a competitor inside. Allin attacks before the bell, takes off his jacket, reveals a steel plate in his back, hitting the coffin drop for good measure. Allin lands a dive to the outside. Scorpio Sky pops out of the coffin, blindsides Allin, and then Sting comes out to even the odds. Sting sends Sky into the barricade multiple times. Sting misses a Stinger Splash in the fan area. Sky celebrates, so Sting drops him over and smashed him with a trash can. Paige was sent into the audience. This leads to a commercial. Allin jumps off a railing. Paige catches him. Steel steps are introduced into the fight. Paige drops Allin over them. Allin briefly escapes and hits a dive. Paige tackles him, takes him down, and then Paige had taken the bottom rope apart. He hooks Allin's neck with the corner hook. Allin then comes back with a fish hook in Paige's mouth, and then he drops Paige into the coffin. They exchange strikes into the coffin. Paige then hits a strong right hand and slaps Allin, and then Paige gets hit with his hand. Paige backstrap Allin to the floor and brings the fight back into the ring. Paige is busted open at this point, goes for fireman's carry. Throw off the top rope off the top of the stairs. Allin then fights out with a stunner. Paige cuts off a coffin drop attempt and then hits the avalanche. Ego's edge onto the steel steps. Total ouch. Allin counters an apron suplex by gouging Paige's eyes and biting at his face. Allin picks up a skateboard and hits a assisted stomp with the skateboard, sending Paige into the coffin. Allin closes it on Paige to win the match. Post-match, Allin hits a coffin drop through the top of the coffin into Paige on the inside, and that closes the show. One of the better AEW shows in a while. The realization that they have, in fact, gone over 1 million viewers was also a good sign. We'll be back with more right after this.